Suppose you buy yourself a storage facility. It might be the laziest money in American real estate. The tenants bring everything themselves. Nobody lives there, nothing spoils, and nobody calls you at midnight about a broken toilet, because there is no toilet. A keypad, a camera pole, and one part-time manager can run the entire property. And America clearly cannot get enough of the product. There are more storage facilities in this country than every McDonald's and Starbucks combined. More than 2 billion square feet of stuff behind roll-up doors. Roughly 1 in 10 American households is paying for a unit right now. 1 in 10. Rent out empty rooms, collect quiet money, so goes the pitch. The pitch is missing its engine. At Public Storage, the biggest company in the business, sitting customers have recently been paying around 74% more than new customers walking in for identical rooms. That gap is not a rounding error. That gap is the entire business. By the end of this video, you will know why the empty room is the least valuable thing on the property. You will know the one occupancy number that decides whether the building feeds you or feeds the bank. And you will know how the biggest names in this industry can crush a small owner's prices without ever crossing the street. If you like watching boring buildings confess where their money is, tap subscribe. It is free, and there is always another business on the workbench. Start with the ticket, in, because storage has a genuinely cheap end, and the cheap end is real. Door 1. You buy a facility that already exists. Stabilized properties trade at roughly $70 to $200 per rentable square foot, with the national average lately around $160. So a modest 30,000 square foot site costs a few $1,000,000, while a gravel lot operation in a small town can still change hands for well under $1 million. Door 2. You build, and the buildings are famously simple. Single-story drive-up construction runs about $25 to $40 per square foot, with the climate-controlled kind closer to $65 to $75. And those climate-controlled rooms rent at a healthy premium once they fill. Put land and site work underneath, and a compact 100-unit project pencils out somewhere between $750,000 and $1.25 million, all in. Cheap steel, though, is exactly where the easy part ends. A 40-cent. Brand new facility typically needs 24 to 36 months of leasing to reach a stabilized 85 to 90% occupancy. That is 2 to 3 years of full-size loan payments on a building that is mostly air, in a business whose entire reputation is passive income. The bank bills you monthly. The neighborhood fills your building on its own schedule. Now for the costs that never appear on the steel invoice. The first is people, which sounds absurd in a business with no service, until you learn that staffing is typically the single largest operating expense on a storage property, which is why the industry is quietly deleting the job. Operators switching to remote management and kiosks report cutting labor costs per facility by 30 to 50%. The second is the discount you pay to get anyone through the gate. The sign may say $120, but the website says first month free, or $1 for the first 30 days. Every tenant you win starts out paying less than the rate card, and in a minute you will see why operators are happy, even eager, to eat that loss. The third hidden cost is the one that actually ends careers in this business, and it is waiting a few chapters ahead. It is not on any invoice either. It is on a zoning map. The first month is free because the 20th month is not. So where does the money really come from? Not from renting space, or at least not the way a normal landlord rents space. Ask, instead, what a storage tenant actually is. Think of a streaming subscription you signed up for years ago. The price has crept up again and again, and you have stayed every time because canceling cost you something small but annoying. Your lists, your history, your settings. Now make that friction physical, so that canceling means renting a truck, recruiting 2 friends, and giving up an entire Saturday to move boxes you have not opened in a year. That is a storage unit. Nearly every rental in this industry runs month to month, which sounds like freedom for the customer. It is actually a repricing machine for the owner, because month-to-month terms can be raised at almost any time, and the tenant's own belongings are the argument against leaving. Run one customer through the machine. She rents a 10 by 10 for around $100 a month on a move-in special, planning to keep it for 3 months while she changes houses. Life happens, the boxes stay, and by recent industry counts the average stay has stretched to roughly 18 to 20 months. Somewhere in there, the letters start arriving. New York City's Consumer Protection Agency sued the country's largest storage operator in early 2026 over exactly this playbook, alleging rates raised sharply and soon after move-in, sometimes doubling within a year. with renters who started around $100 to $150 pushed past $300. And every time a letter lands, the tenant does the same math. The increase costs her maybe $30 a month, but the exit costs a truck, a deposit, and a Saturday. And the cheaper facility across town will run the same play on her within months anyway. She stays. Multiply her by a few million households, and you get that 74% gap between the price on the sign and the price sitting tenants actually pay. Leafage gruff. So say the thesis out loud. The unit was never the product. The product is the gap between the move-in price and the sitting price, and the tenant's own furniture is what holds the gap open. Storage does not charge you for space. It charges you for the Saturday you keep not spending. Now watch the professionals run that machine at full speed. The modern playbook has two pedals. Pedal 1. Push the advertised street rate as low as the market demands, even below cost, because the street rate exists only to fill empty rooms. Pedal 2. Raise the sitting tenants on a schedule, because the sitting tenants are the revenue. A decade ago, the industry standard was one polite increase per year, somewhere in the range of 8 to 12%. Today the raises are algorithmic, and existing customer increases at the big operators can run past 10% per year, timed to whenever the software judges that your Saturday is still worth more to you than the raise. Some operators even bill in 28-day cycles, which quietly slides a 13th billing period into every calendar year. And when a tenant finally stops paying, notice what does not happen. An eviction case. Every state grants storage operators a lien on the contents of the unit, and after roughly 30 to 90 days of missed payments, depending on the state, the operator can cut the lock and auction the belongings in the parking lot. By industry estimates, that happens to around 150,000 units a year, and the winning bids, often just a few $100s and sometimes less, frequently add up to less than the rent that was owed. An apartment tenant has a lease and a courtroom. A storage tenant has a padlock that is not hers. Underneath all of that sits the gentlest cost structure in real estate, and the occupancy number promised at the top of this video. Operating costs at a stabilized facility consume only 25 to 40% of revenue, and some industry guides put the occupancy needed to cover both the operating costs and the loan at only around 65%. Below that line, the building feeds the bank. Above it, every additional tenant is nearly pure margin, which is how the biggest company in the sector keeps roughly 78 cents of every same-store revenue dollar as direct operating income. So here is the entire model in one sentence. Bait fills the rooms, software raises the sitting tenants, a lien replaces the collections department, and a building that guards itself keeps most of every dollar. Be precise about what those margins are, though, because every one of them is gross, not take-home. Property taxes climb as the facility appreciates. Insurance keeps repricing upward. The part-time payroll never fully disappears, and every online booking pays a toll to the card processors and the marketing channels that delivered it. Then comes the loan, and the loan is the honest number. Stabilized storage mostly trades at capitalization rates between 5.5% and 7%, and if you borrow most of the purchase price at modern interest rates, the mortgage payment can swallow nearly everything the operating margin produces. Buyers who ignored that arithmetic in the cheap money years have spent the time since finding out what negative leverage means. The building runs itself, the mortgage does not. Which brings us to the zoning map, and the promise from the top of this video, how the giants can crush your prices without ever crossing the street. Think about what protected the businesses we have covered before. 20 acres of interstate frontage, a trench full of plumbing the city charges you thousands per machine to connect, a tunnel that costs 7 figures to pour. Storage has nothing like it. The product is a steel box on a slab. The permits are ordinary, and any flat corner of any growing suburb can sprout 60,000 square feet of new competition within a year or two. When that new building opens, it opens desperate, at lease up prices, and every facility nearby watches its own street rate get dragged down after it. America holds about 7 square feet of storage per person, but the boom towns overshot that benchmark badly, and the results are on the sign poles. Street rates in oversupplied Sunbelt metros like Atlanta, San Antonio, and Phoenix kept falling year over year through the middle of this decade, and in the hardest hit market in the country, rates recently ran almost 10% below the year before. Nationally, facility valuations slid for 6 consecutive quarters, down about 12% from their peak. The steel did not change, the math underneath it did. Now place a small owner in one of those markets. 2 years into a lease-up, and watch the mechanics work on him. The giant across town can price its move-ins below cost for as long as it likes, because millions of sitting tenants nationwide are funding the war. The small owner has no sitting tenants yet. His entire book is at street rate. He is locked in a price war where only his opponent owns the 74% gap. He is not competing with another building. He is competing with another balance sheet. Sheet metal is a wonderful product and a terrible moat. Step back though, because 2 facts about this industry look like they cannot both be true. Street rates are falling, valuations are sliding, and the flagship pricing playbook is being argued about in a courtroom. And yet storage keeps minting quiet fortunes, decade after decade, on some of the dullest buildings in the country. The resolution is that the demand is a ratchet. The industry credits most of its rentals to 4 blunt life events: death, divorce, downsizing, and dislocation. And none of the 4 is going out of style. Households arrive in a crisis planning for 3 months. The average stay stretches toward 2 years. And the share of households renting keeps inching up, because once the boxes are in the room, they almost never leave the system. America does not throw things away. It rents them a room.
Me the pincushion.
So what does an owner actually clear? The honest answer is that the building matters less than the price you paid for it. So take it in 3 bands. Buy a stabilized facility at full market price with mostly borrowed money, and at first you clear very little. The operating income covers the mortgage with a thin slice left over, and your real return waits for the debt to shrink and the sitting rents to climb. Plenty of recent buyers are effectively working for their lender. The middle band is the value-add hunt, and it is where most of the real money in this industry changes hands. Around 7 in 10 facilities still belong to independent owners, some of them running paper ledgers, sign-only pricing, and no website worth the name. Take a tired property grossing $300,000 a year, install modern pricing and remote management, and push the revenue up by a fifth, and at the capitalization rates this sector trades at, that extra $60,000 of yearly income is roughly $1 million of new building value. The strong band is scale. String a handful of facilities together under one remote managed operation, and a single owner can clear mid-6 figures a year with no employees standing in any of the buildings. That tier is the closest thing to the passive income brochure this industry actually delivers. Buy it right, and the inertia pays you. Buy it wrong, and you become the sitting tenant, with the bank writing the increase letters. The ceiling of this game was set back in 1972, when a Los Angeles businessman named Wayne Hughes put about $50,000 into a warehouse venture under a sign reading private storage spaces. Customers kept asking whether the public could rent space too, so he flipped the name to Public Storage. By the time Hughes died in 2021, that $50,000 had grown into a fortune estimated at $3.3 billion, built on thousands of orange-doored facilities. And the modern giants found an even lazier layer on top. Extra Space, the operator with more stores than anyone else in the country, more than 4,000 of them, also manages upward of 2,000 stores for outside owners and partners, running its pricing software on buildings it never had to buy. Even when the giant does not own the building, it owns the prices. So walk the property one last time before you sign anything. The steel was the cheapest thing on the invoice, and the tenant filled the room herself, with the only collateral in America that pays its own rent. The sign price is bait, the sitting price is the business, and 1 in 10 front doors in the country is quietly funding the gap. Whether you would rather be the tenant weighing a Saturday against $30, or the owner mailing her the letter, is a question this channel cannot settle for you. But if you want the next boring building taken apart bolt by bolt, subscribe now, and drop the business you want on the workbench in the comments.